The morning had started like any other. The streets were alive with the usual sounds of life cars humming along, people walking to their work and vendors setting up their stalls. Among the crowd, a woman moved quietly, almost blending into the sea of faces. She carried a small bag close to her chest and kept her eyes fixed on the ground. There was a calm about her, but also an air of tension, as if she carried invisible weight that no one else could see. Nearby, a man was leaving a small cafe, enjoying the warmth of the sun on his face. He had no idea that his ordinary day was about to change forever. He was not looking for adventure or danger. He was just going about his routine, thinking about small, everyday things: what he would have for lunch, the errands he still needed to run, and the quiet hopes he carried for the future. Suddenly, the air shifted. A loud shout broke through the hum of the city. People turned, confusion flashing in their eyes, and then came the sharp, terrifying sound of gunfire. Panic erupted instantly. Screams filled the streets, and chaos spread like wildfire. The woman froze, unable to move. Her mind raced. She didn't know which way to run or where safety could be found. Her instincts told her to hide. There was no cover close enough. The man saw her standing there, exposed and unaware of the danger that was rapidly closing in. Without thinking, without hesitation, he ran toward her. Some would call it reckless, but he didn't calculate risks or think of consequences. His only thought was clear. He had to protect her. As he reached her, he shouted for her to duck, and he positioned himself between her and the source of the gunfire. Bullets ricocheted around them, hitting walls, breaking glass, and sending clouds of dust into the air. Time seemed to slow. The woman's eyes widened in shock and fear. She couldn't comprehend what was happening. One moment she had been walking calmly. The next, she was staring at a stranger putting himself in harm's way to save her. She tried to speak, to thank him, but no words came out. The sound of gunfire drowned everything. All she could do was hold her breath and hope. The man's body tensed as he absorbed the danger around him. He felt the sting of bullets grazing his clothes and scraping his skin. Pain flared, but he pushed it aside. Every instinct in his body screamed to survive, yet something stronger, something unexplainable, kept him rooted, shielding her, refusing to let harm reach her. He kept his voice steady, commanding yet gentle, urging her to stay close, to move when he saw the moment was safe. Around them, chaos continued. People ran in all directions, some tripping over each other in the rush to escape. A street vendor dropped a cart of vegetables, and the fruits rolled across the ground as if fleeing with the crowd. The sound of sirens grew louder in the distance, but it felt far away, almost irrelevant in the intensity of the moment. For a few minutes, the world narrowed down to two people in the middle of danger, one protecting the other with courage that no one had asked for, and the other relying completely on a stranger to survive. Finally, the source of the gunfire moved on, distracted by another target, or perhaps retreating. The immediate danger lessened, but the tension didn't disappear. The man turned to check the woman, noticing her trembling hands and the pale look on her face. He spoke to her softly, reassuring her that it was over, that she was safe now. She nodded, still unable to speak, still trying to process what had just happened. He noticed the small cuts and bruises she had from debris, and he offered his jacket to cover her, trying to provide comfort in the midst of shock. She hesitated at first, but then accepted it, wrapping herself tightly as if the simple act could help her feel grounded again. They waited together for the authorities, neither moving far from the other, bound by a shared experience that had formed in mere minutes, but would stay with them forever. When the police and paramedics arrived, they took control of the situation. The man stepped back, but stayed nearby, answering questions, recounting what he had seen, and pointing out the moments when he had tried to shield her. The woman, still shaken, stayed silent for the most part. She wasn't hiding anything, but words felt unnecessary. The presence of someone who risked everything for her had left her speechless, and gratitude didn't seem enough to express the depth of what she felt. Later, when the chaos had settled and the streets began to return to normal, the woman disappeared quietly into the crowd. She didn't look back, didn't say a single word, leaving the man standing there, confused and amazed by what had just occurred. He had acted without expectation of reward or recognition, And now, as he watched her vanish, he felt a strange emptiness mixed with relief. She was alive, and that was enough yet. Even as he walked away, returning to the ordinary rhythm of his life, he couldn't shake the image of her face, her eyes wide with fear and surprise, the way she had clung to him for safety. Something had shifted inside him. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of purpose that went beyond routine or personal ambition. That brief encounter, born out of instinct and courage, had changed something fundamental about him. Unbeknownst to him, the woman he saved was far from ordinary. She carried a life that was bound by responsibilities and secrets, a world he could not yet imagine. She would carry the memory of him as well, the stranger who stepped into danger without a second thought, the one who risked everything for a life that wasn't even his to protect. That memory would stay with her, quietly shaping her decisions in the days to come. Even before she revealed the truth about who she really was, as the day ended and the city lights began to glow, the man returned home, still thinking about what had happened. He didn't consider himself a hero. To him, he had simply done what anyone should do if they had the chance. But deep down, he knew that the world had shifted in a small but meaningful way. Somewhere out there, a woman he didn't know yet depended on his courage for survival. And somewhere out there, she remembered him. Even if she didn't yet understand the magnitude of his actions, the quiet of the night could not erase the events of that morning. For both of them, life had changed forever. He would continue with his ordinary days, but the extraordinary had touched him. And she, moving through her own world, would carry the memory of a man who appeared at the exact moment she needed him most. Neither knew the story was only just beginning. The woman walked quietly through the streets, her mind still racing from the morning's events. She kept her head down, careful not to draw attention. Though the danger had passed, her heart was still pounding, and her thoughts were scattered like leaves in the wind. She replayed the stranger's actions over and over in her mind, the way he had stepped in front of her. How calm and determined he had seemed even while the bullets flew. It was almost impossible to believe that someone she had never met could risk so much for a stranger. She found herself moving toward a quieter part of the city, away from the crowded streets and the chaos that had erupted. Her steps were slow, deliberate, as if she were trying to ground herself in the normalcy around her. The shops were opening, and the smell of fresh bread and coffee drifted from small bakeries. People went about their business unaware of what had just happened nearby. To them, it was just another day. But for her, nothing would ever feel ordinary again. As she walked, she realized she could not go home not yet. She had responsibilities there that could not be ignored, and yet, returning meant stepping into a world she was not ready to face. She needed time to think, to recover, and to understand what had just happened. She found a small park, tucked between buildings, and sat on a bench under a tree. The sunlight filtered through the branches, casting moving patterns on the ground. For a moment, the calm helped her breathe. She thought about the man again. What drove him to act the way he did? Did he even realize how brave he had been? She wondered what kind of person would see a stranger in danger and immediately put themselves at risk. It was rare, she realized, to find someone so selfless in a world that often demanded caution and self-interest. A quiet admiration grew inside her, along with a sense of curiosity. Who was he? Where did he come from? And would she ever see him again? Despite her curiosity, she pushed the thoughts aside. There were bigger matters at hand. She lived a life shaped by tradition, responsibility, and duty. Her family's expectations were not simple. They carried the weight of leadership and influence, things she could never discuss openly. Even the smallest slip could cause trouble or create misunderstanding. She had always known that one day her life would require sacrifices that others could not imagine. But the morning's events reminded her that life could also be unexpectedly fragile. And that courage could come from the most ordinary of people. For the next few days, she moved carefully, staying out of the public eye. She returned to her home, a place of strict rules and long shadows where every action was observed and measured. Her family noticed her quietness, but attributed it to the normal stresses of life. No one knew what had happened outside, and she was careful to say nothing. The man's presence in her memory became like a gentle whisper, a reminder that even in the midst of her complex world, simple human kindness still existed. She thought about him often. She remembered the way he had spoken to her, his voice steady, offering comfort when fear had paralyzed her. She remembered how he had shielded her body with his own, how he had moved without hesitation. Each memory carried a warmth, a small sense of safety that had been rare in her life. It was strange, she realized, how quickly strangers could leave a mark that time could not erase. Meanwhile, the man returned to his own life, unaware of the deeper story that surrounded the woman he had saved. He told friends and family what had happened, but it felt distant and unreal when he spoke aloud. How could he explain the feeling that had stayed with him, the sense that his life had shifted, even if he did not fully understand how? He went to work, ran errands, and ate meals as usual, but in quiet moments, he found himself thinking about her. The memory of her wide, fearful eyes haunted him, along with the knowledge that he had been the one to protect her. The woman, too, found her thoughts drifting to him. She imagined what his life might be like, his routines, his quiet moments of reflection. She wondered if he thought about her at all, if he remembered the way she had clung to him in fear, or if it had already faded like smoke in the wind. Despite her position, despite her responsibilities, she could not stop thinking about the man who had risked so much to save her life. As the days passed, she slowly returned to her public life, attending meetings and fulfilling duties that required her attention. Yet, she moved with caution, aware of how fragile her world had become. The morning's event had reminded her that danger could appear at any moment, and that trust, while rare, was sometimes found in unexpected places. Her family noticed her increased awareness, the careful way she observed her surroundings, but she kept the details to herself. The stranger had saved her, and that secret remained her own. One afternoon, she received a message that reminded her that the world was full of surprises. It was from someone she trusted deeply, a friend who often looked out for her safety and well-being. The message was simple, warning her to remain careful and avoid unnecessary risks. Though the words were ordinary, they carried weight, reinforcing the lessons she had learned, that life was unpredictable and courage could be found in the smallest gestures. She thought again of the man who had risked everything for her, and a quiet hope stirred in her heart that one day she might thank him properly in her private moments. She reflected on what had happened and what it meant. She realized that heroism was not always about grand gestures or titles. Sometimes it was about the willingness to act, to step forward when others hesitated. It was about instinct, courage, and the refusal to let fear dominate. She understood now that the man who had saved her life had acted without thought of reward, without consideration of recognition. His courage had been pure, and that purity had left a lasting impression. She also realized that her life was about to change, in ways she could not yet predict. The morning's events had been more than a moment of danger, they had been a turning point. Someone had seen her in her most vulnerable state, and someone had risked everything for her survival. That knowledge would shape her actions, her decisions, and her understanding of trust. She began to see the possibility that connections, even fleeting ones, could carry meaning far beyond what was immediately visible. At the same time, she understood that she could not act openly. Her world demanded discretion, careful movement, and calculated decisions. She could not simply reach out to the man and thank him. Doing so could create complications she was not ready to handle. She had to wait, observe, and plan her next steps carefully. Yet she could carry the memory privately, allowing it to guide her without exposing herself unnecessarily. The man, on the other side of the city, began to notice small changes in himself. He was calmer, yet more aware of the fragility of life. He appreciated ordinary moments more deeply, noticing details he had once overlooked. He thought about human courage, about the quiet heroism that sometimes appeared in unexpected places. The woman he had saved became a symbol of that awareness, a reminder that life was unpredictable, and that the smallest actions could have the greatest impact. As the week progressed, their lives moved forward on separate paths, yet an invisible thread connected them. She lived in a world of tradition and responsibility, while he continued his ordinary life, unaware of the ripple effect his actions had created. Both of them carried memories that would not fade. shaping decisions, influencing thoughts, and preparing them for the unexpected events that lay ahead. By the end of the week, she had returned to her routine, yet she moved with a quiet confidence, strengthened by the knowledge that someone had risked everything for her. The morning's events had changed her understanding of courage, trust, and humanity. She knew that the world contained unexpected kindness. That bravery often came from ordinary people, and that some encounters, though brief, could leave lasting marks in quiet moments. She found herself thinking about the man, imagining the life he lived, and wondering how it had been affected by their brief encounter. She realized that their connection, though unspoken, had created a bond that neither of them fully understood yet. And deep inside, she felt a sense of anticipation, as if something important was about to happen, something that would reveal the true meaning of the courage, kindness, and selflessness she had witnessed that morning. News of the incident reached the woman's family quickly, though she had hoped it might stay private. In her world, every event, no matter how small, carried weight and attention. Her father, a man of influence and respect, was known not only for his leadership, but for his careful attention to detail and the well-being of those around him. When he heard that his daughter had been caught in a dangerous situation, his first reaction was fear. Followed by an intense curiosity about how she had managed to survive, he called for a full report. Staff and aides described the events as they had been told: gunfire, panic in the streets, and a stranger who had shielded her from harm. The father's brow furrowed as he listened. There was something about the story that touched him deeply. Most people would have fled or hidden. Most people would have thought first of themselves. But this man, a complete stranger, had risked his life without hesitation. That kind of courage, the father knew, was rare. It was worth acknowledging, worth remembering. The woman, meanwhile, moved through her daily life with quiet composure. She kept her emotions in check, hiding the lingering fear and relief she still felt. She did not speak of the stranger or the moment of danger, though her father could see the weight in her eyes. He had always known his daughter was cautious and thoughtful, but there was something different now. A sense of respect and admiration that had taken root, even though she would not voice it, as the father considered the situation. He thought about what it meant for the man who had saved her. To risk one's life for another without knowing anything about them showed a depth of character that could not be measured in ordinary terms. The father understood the importance of recognizing such courage. He believed that acts like this should not go unnoticed, for they set examples for others to follow, and reminded the world that true heroism could appear in unexpected places. He decided that he must find the man. He instructed his aides to gather every detail available where the stranger had been seen. Any descriptions or names, even small details that might help locate him. He wanted to understand who this person was, not for reward or status, but because the world needed to know that someone had acted with such selflessness. The father also wanted to ensure that the man would be safe. His daughter had been endangered, but so had the man who saved her. It was only fair that the world recognize his bravery. The woman, though she continued her daily life, felt a growing tension in the days that followed. She knew her father would act, and she understood that the stranger who had saved her would not remain unknown for long. Yet, she had no way of predicting how her father would respond, or what consequences might come from the man's heroic actions. The thought of him being recognized or, even brought into her world, made her heart beat faster. She was grateful, yes, but also nervous about what might follow. Meanwhile, the man continued with his life, unaware of the attention he had drawn. Friends and colleagues spoke of his bravery, yet he remained humble, insisting he had only done what anyone would do in the same situation. He did not realize that the ripple of his actions had traveled far beyond the streets where the danger had occurred. He had acted without expectation. But his courage was now becoming known to people far more powerful than he could imagine. As the father gathered information, he learned more about the man's character. Witnesses spoke of his calm presence, his quick thinking, and his ability to act without panic. These details reinforced what the father already believed, that this man was remarkable in a quiet, understated way. He did not seek recognition, but his actions had earned it. The father felt a deep sense of gratitude, not only for what had been done for his daughter, but also for the example it set for others. In his view, such bravery deserved acknowledgement and perhaps a personal meeting. The woman sensed the change in the atmosphere around her. Though she was careful not to reveal anything, she noticed her father's subtle questions, the increased attention given to her safety, and the quiet determination in his aide's actions. She realized that the stranger's bravery would not be forgotten. There would come a moment when the man would be brought into her world, and she had to prepare herself for that encounter. She felt a mixture of relief, curiosity, and apprehension. Unsure how she would react when she finally saw him again. The father made a decision. He would personally meet the man who had risked his life. He believed that simple recognition was not enough. This man had shown courage and humanity in its purest form. Such deeds deserved respect, conversation, and perhaps even friendship. He hoped that by meeting him, he could express gratitude not just as a father, but as a leader who valued integrity and bravery above all else. Plans were quietly made. The father sent word through trusted aides, asking them to locate the man and ensure he was treated with care and respect. It was not a summons or a demand, but an invitation, an offer to meet someone whose actions had moved people in ways that few could fully understand. Every detail was considered: the setting, the timing, and the manner in which the man would be approached. The father wanted this to be an experience of respect and honor, not intimidation or pressure. Meanwhile, the woman's thoughts returned again and again to the stranger. She remembered the moment he had shielded her, the courage in his eyes, and the calm determination in his movements. She felt a growing sense of admiration and wonder. Who was he? What kind of life did he lead? And how had fate brought them together at that precise moment? She realized that she had been forever changed by the encounter, and she knew that when they met again, her understanding of him and, perhaps, of herself would deepen. The father, with his plans in motion, reflected on the lessons that the man's actions had taught him. He thought about the importance of courage, the quiet power of selfless acts, and the way that one person could change the course of another's life. He believed that recognizing such bravery was not only an act of gratitude, but a way of honoring humanity itself. The man's actions had proven that heroism was not reserved for the powerful or influential, but could be found in anyone willing to step forward in the face of danger. As the days passed, the anticipation grew. The father continued his duties, the woman navigated her responsibilities, and the man went about his ordinary life, unaware of the extraordinary recognition coming his way. The threads of their lives were slowly weaving together, though none of them fully understood how or when the next chapter would unfold. Every decision, every thought, and every memory of that fateful morning contributed to a larger story. One would soon bring them together in a way that neither could have imagined. The woman, in private, allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. She thought about the bravery of strangers, kindness that could appear unexpectedly, and the ways in which lives could intersect at the most critical moments. She realized that gratitude, though silent, could shape behavior, decisions, and even destiny. She understood that the man had given her more than safety. He had given her a renewed sense of hope and a reminder of the goodness that still existed in the world. At the same time, she prepared herself mentally for what might come. She knew her father would act. She understood that the man who had saved her would soon enter a world far different from his own. She wondered how he would react, how he would respond to the honor and attention, and how their paths would cross once more. The thought of seeing him again brought a mixture of anticipation, nervousness, and quiet excitement. Finally, the preparations were complete. The father had gathered all the necessary information, assured the man's safety, and planned a meeting that would convey respect, admiration, and gratitude. The woman, aware of the approaching encounter, felt a sense of curiosity and cautious hope. The world around them had shifted slowly and quietly, preparing the stage for a reunion that would carry meaning far beyond what anyone could imagine. And though none of them could predict exactly how the meeting would unfold, one truth was clear: the courage of one man had changed everything. He had acted without thought of reward or recognition, and in doing so, had captured the attention and respect of a family, a community, and a father who understood the true value of selflessness. The next chapter of their story was ready to begin. It would reveal the depth of bravery, gratitude, and human connection in ways that no one could have expected. The man had no idea his life was about to change. Days had passed since that terrifying morning, and he had returned to his usual routine, thinking the extraordinary events were behind him. He went to work, ran errands, and tried to focus on ordinary tasks, yet a quiet sense of reflection lingered in his mind. He often thought about the woman he had saved, but he assumed their paths would never cross again. The memory of her fear, her relief, and her silent gratitude stayed with him, a reminder of that moment that had altered his life in ways he could not yet understand. One afternoon, as he returned from work, a car pulled up in front of his modest home. The vehicle was unassuming, yet the presence of two well-dressed men stepping out immediately made him alert. They approached politely, with calm but firm expressions. One of them introduced himself and explained that they had a message from a respected and influential family. The man listened carefully, curiosity mixing with caution. The message was simple, but surprising. The family wished to meet him to discuss the events of that morning. At first, he hesitated. Why would anyone want to meet him? He had only acted out of instinct, and he had never sought recognition or reward. Yet something in the way the men spoke, the respect in their tone, the careful formality, made him realize that this was no ordinary request. With a mixture of apprehension and curiosity, he agreed to accompany them, unsure of what awaited him. The journey was quiet. The streets passed by in a blur, but his mind was alive with questions. Who exactly wanted to meet him? Why now? What did it all mean? He tried to prepare himself for anything, but he knew that no matter what he imagined, the reality could be far different. When they arrived at the destination, a grand building with an elegant courtyard, he felt a mix of awe and nervousness. This was far from the ordinary world he knew. He was guided inside, where a formal reception awaited. The interior was impressive but not overwhelming, designed with care and attention to detail. Everything spoke of a world far removed from his own, a world of influence, responsibility, and power. And at the center of it all stood a man whose presence commanded attention. It was the father of the woman he had saved, a leader known for his wisdom, authority, and deep sense of responsibility. The man's eyes met his, and in that moment, he felt a mixture of respect, humility, and slight apprehension. The father spoke first, his voice calm but strong. He thanked the man for his courage, for stepping in to protect his daughter without knowing who she was, without asking for recognition or reward. He described the significance of such an act, explaining how rare and meaningful it was. The man listened quietly, feeling a sense of pride mixed with disbelief. He had never imagined that his actions, born out of instinct, would lead to this moment, where his bravery was recognized by someone so powerful and respected. The father continued, explaining that in their world, courage and honor were deeply valued. A person who acted selflessly without thought of personal gain earned respect not only from the family but from the community at large. He spoke of the impact of the man's actions, how they had reinforced faith in human kindness and bravery. Every word carried weight, and the man began to understand that his simple act of protection had resonated far beyond what he had imagined. Then came the part he did not expect. The father extended an offer not of money or title, but something far greater. He offered the man an opportunity to be part of a world that valued courage, integrity, and honor above all else. The details were carefully explained. The man could work alongside trusted members of the family, contribute to meaningful projects, and be recognized in ways that went beyond ordinary life. It was an invitation to step into a sphere where his actions could inspire others and where his bravery would be both honored and guided with respect. The man was taken aback. He had never considered himself extraordinary. He had acted out of instinct, not ambition. The offer seemed almost unreal, as if he had stepped into a story he could not have imagined. Yet, as he listened, he realized that this was not a request for obligation or a demand for service. It was an opportunity, a chance to make a difference, to connect with people who valued courage and integrity, and to experience a life shaped by respect, trust, and meaningful responsibility. The woman, observing from a nearby room, watched the man's reaction. She had been anxious about how he would respond. wondering if he would reject the attention, if he would feel uncomfortable or overwhelmed. Yet, as she saw his humility and the quiet acknowledgement of what had occurred, she felt a growing admiration. This was the same man who had risked his life for her. And now he faced recognition with the same modesty and integrity he had shown that morning. The father explained that this offer was not only about gratitude, but about connection. He believed that people like the man, those who acted with bravery and selflessness, served guidance, respect, and opportunities to make a meaningful impact. It was an unusual offer, certainly one that no one could have predicted. But in his view, recognizing and nurturing courage was one of the greatest responsibilities a leader could have. The man thought carefully. He considered his own life, ordinary as it had been, and compared it to the possibilities now before him. He thought about the morning he had shielded the woman, the fear and the adrenaline, the instinct that had driven him. And he thought about the responsibility he might carry now, the chance to step into a larger world and contribute to something greater than himself. The decision weighed heavily, yet he felt a quiet certainty building inside him. This was not just an honor. It was a calling. After a moment of reflection, he nodded. He accepted the father's offer, understanding that his life was about to change in ways he could not fully predict. He felt a mixture of excitement, humility, and anticipation. The father smiled, offering reassurance that he would be guided, supported, and respected throughout this new journey. The woman, witnessing the acceptance, felt a quiet sense of relief and admiration. The man who had protected her would now be recognized and connected to a world that valued what he had already shown: courage, selflessness, and integrity. The rest of the day was spent introducing the man to trusted members of the family and explaining the responsibilities and opportunities ahead. Every detail was presented with care, ensuring that he felt welcomed and understood. There were no demands, only guidance, support, and the promise of a meaningful path forward. The man listened attentively, absorbing every word, realizing that he was stepping into a world far larger than he had ever imagined, yet one in which his actions had already earned respect and trust. By evening, the meeting concluded. The man left with a sense of awe, humility, and quiet anticipation. He understood that his life had been forever altered, not by chance alone, but by courage, selflessness, and the willingness to act in the face of danger. The woman accompanied him for a brief moment, sharing a silent acknowledgement of what had brought them together. No words were needed. The bond formed that morning had deepened, strengthened by respect, gratitude, shared understanding. As he walked away, the man reflected on how extraordinary the past few days had been. A single moment of courage had led to recognition, opportunity, and connection. He realized that life had a way of rewarding those who acted with integrity, even if they did not seek reward. And he understood that this was only the beginning, a first step in a journey that would challenge him, inspire him, and allow him to make a difference far beyond what he had imagined. Meanwhile, the woman returned to her life with a renewed sense of hope and admiration. She had witnessed firsthand the humility, courage, and integrity of a man who had risked everything for her safety, and she knew that the connection formed that morning, strengthened by the events of the following days, would shape not only their lives, but the lives of many others in ways that no one could have foreseen. The stage was set for new beginnings, for experiences that would test courage, reward integrity, and create bonds that could not be broken. And at the center of it all was a man who had acted without hesitation, whose bravery had been recognized, and whose life had been forever changed by the simple yet extraordinary act of protecting another human being. The man walked home that evening with a mind full of thoughts he could hardly organize. Everything had changed in a matter of days. What had started as a single act of instinct, the choice to protect a stranger in danger, had grown into something extraordinary. He had been offered a place in a world far beyond his own, a world where courage, integrity, and honor were valued above all else. And now he had a choice to make. He sat quietly in his small living room, staring out the window at the fading light. The city hummed below, unaware of the quiet drama unfolding in his own life. The streets seemed ordinary, yet nothing around him felt ordinary anymore. He thought of the woman, of her fear and relief, of the trust she had placed in him without knowing anything about him. And he thought of the father, a man of immense power and wisdom, who had recognized his courage and offered him a path that could change everything. The decision weighed heavily. Accepting the offer meant leaving behind the familiar world he had always known, the routines, the friends, the quiet comfort of ordinary life. It meant stepping into a world of responsibility, expectation, and influence he had never imagined. Yet, there was a part of him that felt ready, that understood the significance of the choice. He realized that courage was not only about facing danger in a single moment, but also about embracing the unknown, taking responsibility for new opportunities, and stepping forward when life demanded more than what was ordinary. The next morning, he received a message from the father, inviting him to return for the first formal meeting as part of this new chapter. He arrived with a mixture of nervousness and anticipation, unsure what to expect but determined to face the day with the same honesty and courage that had guided him before. The father greeted him warmly, as if welcoming an old friend rather than a stranger who had only recently entered his life. The respect and care in his manner immediately put the man at ease. Inside, he found the woman waiting. She stood quietly, observing him with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. Their eyes met, and in that instant, words were unnecessary. Both knew what had been risked, what had been survived, and what had been changed forever. The bond formed that fateful morning, though silent, had grown stronger with time, recognition, and reflection. Now it was ready to become something Mara shared: understanding, a mutual respect, and a connection that went beyond words. The father spoke first, expressing again his gratitude and explaining the role the man could now play. It was a position of influence, responsibility, and purpose. He would be trusted with tasks that required judgment, courage, and integrity. He would be able to make decisions that impacted lives in positive ways, guided by the principles that had led him to act so bravely in the first place. Every word carried weight, emphasizing not just opportunity, but the trust placed in him. The man listened carefully, understanding fully the responsibility that lay ahead. It was more than a job, more than recognition. It was a chance to make a meaningful impact, to act with purpose, and to be part of something larger than himself. He realized that the choice he made now would define not only his own future, but also the lives of many others. Courage, he knew, was never a single act. It was a continuous commitment to doing what was right. Even when the path was uncertain, the woman stepped forward, finally breaking the silence. She thanked him softly, her voice carrying the depth of gratitude she had felt since the day he had saved her. She spoke of the fear she had experienced, the trust she had placed in him, and the relief and admiration that had followed. Her words were simple, but they held a profound meaning and acknowledgement that courage could transform lives, that a single act could ripple far beyond the moment it occurred. The man felt a warmth in his chest, a quiet pride mixed with humility. He had acted without thought of recognition, and yet here he was, honored and trusted. He realized that the recognition was not what mattered most. What mattered was the opportunity to continue acting with courage and integrity, to make a difference, and to build a life that reflected the values he had shown when he stepped forward that morning. Together, they discussed the path forward. The father outlined the responsibilities, the projects, and the people the man would work with. The woman added her perspective, explaining the nuances of their world and the importance of careful judgment. It was clear that the man's role would require attention, thoughtfulness, and collaboration. Yet it also promised fulfillment and purpose far beyond what he had ever imagined. As the discussion continued, the man felt a growing sense of clarity. He understood that this was more than an opportunity, it was a calling. The same courage that had led him to shield a stranger from danger was now required to step into a new life, to face challenges with integrity, and to contribute meaningfully to a world that valued selflessness and bravery. The decision he had been pondering now felt inevitable. He was ready to embrace the future. By the end of the day, arrangements had been made. He would begin working closely with the father and trusted members of the family, contributing to projects that affected lives, communities, and initiatives of significance. He would also remain in contact with the woman, who would become both a symbol of the courage he had displayed and a guide to navigating the complexities of this new world. The opportunities were immense, but so too was the support and trust he would receive. In the following weeks, he began his new role. Every day brought new challenges, requiring thoughtful decisions, careful observation, and courage in unexpected moments. He found himself growing in ways he had never imagined, learning to balance responsibility with empathy, and discovering the depth of impact one person could have when guided by principles of integrity and selflessness. The memory of the morning he had saved the woman remained a quiet anchor, reminding him of the power of instinct, courage, and trust. The woman, meanwhile, observed his progress with admiration. She had witnessed his bravery firsthand, and now she saw the way he navigated this new world with humility, intelligence, and integrity. Their bond grew stronger, rooted in shared experience, mutual respect, and the quiet understanding that courage and kindness could shape destinies. They spent time discussing ideas, learning from one another, and supporting the work that had become both meaningful and transformative. Months passed, and the man's role became more significant. He contributed to decisions that improved lives, solved challenges with creativity and courage, and earned the respect of those around him. Yet, despite the recognition, he remained humble, grounded by the memory of that single act that had started it all. He understood that true heroism was not measured by awards or titles, but by the choices one made when faced with fear, uncertainty, or the chance to help others. The woman continued to flourish in her world as well. She carried with her the lessons of trust, courage, and gratitude. Understanding more deeply the ways in which human connection could alter the course of life, she recognized that the man had changed not only her life, but the lives of many others. And she felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that his courage had inspired trust, hope, and action. Together, they reflected on the journey that had brought them here. What began as a single, split-second decision had grown into a life-altering experience, connecting to worlds, shaping destinies, and demonstrating the profound power of human kindness and bravery. They realized that courage, when combined with integrity and selflessness, could create ripples far beyond what anyone could predict, leaving a lasting impact on lives, families, and communities. In the end, the man had chosen to step into the unknown, guided by courage, integrity, and the desire to make a difference. The woman had witnessed his bravery and supported his growth. The father had honored his selflessness with respect, opportunity, and guidance. Together, their lives were forever intertwined, connected by a moment of fear, trust, and extraordinary courage, a moment that had led to a future filled with purpose, meaning, and the quiet joy of knowing that one person's actions could truly change everything as they looked toward the future. They understood that life would continue to bring challenges, risks, and moments that demanded courage. But they also knew that together, guided by integrity and trust, they could face anything. And in that understanding, they found hope, strength, and the deep satisfaction of knowing that ordinary people, when guided by extraordinary courage, could make the impossible possible.